Hi, my name is David, but you can call me Skiff, and welcome back to Notflix, the show about other shows. Today we are discussing Netflix's original series, Insatiable Season 1, Episode 4, titled WMBS. I'm warning you now, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't watched the episode, go ahead and do that first. We'll be waiting for you when you get done. But if you have watched the episode, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So the last time we saw Patty and Bob had just proved to Patty that he was willing to do anything it was going to take to be her pageant coach, and she agreed to be with him because he won the crawfish eating competition. And Stella Rose had just given Patty a necklace. I guess it was just a necklace. It wasn't a locket, but it was in the shape of a heart, and it said something to the effect that Bob loved her or something like that. It basically proving that Bob had had this extramarital affair 20 years prior when he had just met Stella Rose and had just married Alyssa Milano. Flash forward to this week's episode. Patty and Bob are working out getting ready for the pageant, for Patty's first pageant, when they come to find out that the pageant has been canceled because of the Zika virus or something like that, because the pageant was happening in Florida. I don't know, they didn't really get into that very much, but it was sort of a way for us to see that Alyssa Milano, who is obsessed with Christopher Gorham and his life, had gotten this gym membership to sort of like be a stalker and become Christopher Gorham's wife. And this was another way for us to find out, to move forward in the episode, that Christopher Gorham's wife had been kicked out of the junior league because she was a working mother and wasn't around enough, and so she couldn't be like the chairperson of the junior league, which I was a little confused because I wasn't sure that this had ever been discussed before, that Christopher Gorham's wife was a doctor and that she wasn't home that often, but maybe it was and I had just missed that part of the piece of information, but I don't think that I did. But anyway, they're bringing it up now, and Alyssa Milano suggests that they start a new group together, a way for her to sort of like inch her way into becoming this woman, which is a little single white female for my tastes, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess, in these small towns. So they decide that the group should be specifically for working mothers, and the way that they're going to raise money, Bob then suggests, because Christopher Gorham's wife is like, well, we need to raise money, we need to have a gala, and Bob suggests that they should have a pageant, to which they then suggest, Christopher Gorham and his wife, a mother-daughter pageant so that Magnolia can compete with her mother. But Bob and Alyssa Milano's daughter is a Marine, so she's not available, and Patty's mother is an alcoholic and still away at this like AA retreat. And so Bob is like, well, Alyssa Milano, my wife, you can compete with Patty because you've been like a mother to her, even though they don't get along at all. And now we can get into the episode. All of this was sort of like set up so that we could get our way into this like pageant, and so much happened in this week's episode that it was sort of like hard to keep straight, because like a lot was happening. We're nearing the middle of the season, so we're getting to the apex of all of the drama, right? And so stuff needs to start like happening for us to like move forward. Alyssa Milano and Bob get a speeding ticket, one of those traffic cam speeding tickets, from their son's car, which sort of reveals that he was having this sexual relationship with Arden, which then sets in motion Bob wanting to get his revenge, or exact his revenge, sort of with Arden for calling him a child molester when she was the child molester. And we're setting the wheels in motion of Patty becoming this pageant queen. Now, they go to back to school night, or parents' night at school. I think it's back to school night because school has just started, to rally up mothers and daughters to compete in the pageant, because they need people to compete so that they can have a full pageant. And this is when we sort of find out that Patty's mother is back And she reveals to her mother that she's going to be doing this competition with Alyssa Milano instead of her because she's never around and she's always disappointing her anyways. And you know what? I'm going to do it with her. So why don't you just sit down, sit back, relax. I've got this covered. I don't need you anymore. And at the pageant, at back to school night is when Bob approaches Christopher Gorham about this plan that he wants to set in motion of getting Arden arrested to take accountability for what she's been doing with his son. And we're starting to see that Magnolia has a little bit of resentment towards her mother not being around that often, and Christopher Gorham sort of like takes a back seat to this sort of like mother-daughter relationship that they have. And there seems to be like a little bit of tension between his daughter and him, where he seems to be putting on so much pressure onto her that she reveals to her mother later on in the episode that she no longer wants to do pageants. They haven't been fun anymore because he's constantly pushing her to do things now that she doesn't want to do anymore. And he sort of sees this pageant and pageantry in general as a way for them to keep this reputation, this like familial reputation of being the best in the town, which we're starting to see like these cracks in the foundation of Christopher Gorham's relationship and family, and they don't seem to be like the perfect family that everyone thinks they are. And yes, we're getting to see that as the audience, but I don't think that anyone in the town is aware of like what's going on. I mean, if they were sort of this like perfect waspy family, and I put wasps in quotation marks because they're not technically wasps, but if they were to be this perfect like waspy family, all of their trials and tribulations would be swept under the rug so that no one else would be aware of them, which they seem to be doing fairly well at.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Now, skipping forward to the pageant, because not much really happens. Yes, Arden and her daughter are like, okay, we need to find a way to sabotage these people because we want to win the pageant, and Magnolia and her mother drop out of the pageant, leaving more room for Patty to win her first pageant. And we're sort of starting to see, this is exactly what happens. Alyssa Milano and Patty need to form a bond so that they can prove that they actually are like mother and daughter, even though they're not biologically mother and daughter. So they want to sort of, Bob tells them that they need to form this relationship and sort of like figure out where they can connect and see eye to eye. And Alyssa Milano, after being called out by Patty's mother at the Wiener Taco, which again, another sexual innuendo. They're at the Wiener Taco, and it's sort of like, oh, they come hard and they come soft, and it's just a little much for me, and I'm getting a little tired of the sexual innuendos, and I feel like they're sort of cheap jokes, and the writers could have done a little bit better, because it's sort of like teenage humor, and it's like, why are we going for the cheap joke when it's not even funny? That aside, Alyssa Milano gets called out for being a trailer park girl because Patty's mother remembers her. So Alyssa Milano takes Patty back home and reveals to her, yes, I was a trailer park girl, and yes, I came out of it, and I am proof that you can do anything with your life, and you don't have to be screwed just because your mother was, and there's a way out of it. You just have to dream, and you have to dream big. And this is where Patty sort of starts to decide that maybe she doesn't want to ruin Bob's and Alyssa Milano's relationship, and maybe she should let them be happy. So she has this necklace, and she's been planning all along to give it to Alyssa Milano to sort of implode the relationship. She even calls it a grenade. And at this point, she sort of decides, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I can put my feelings aside for the sake of their relationship. Flashing forward to the pageant, Arden and her daughter destroy Patty and Alyssa Milano's gowns, their mother-daughter gowns, by scrolling or writing on them, I guess in lipstick it seems, the word whore on each of them, one spelled correctly, one spelled incorrectly, and Bob has the perfect idea, which actually was very clever, I think, of him, and he decides to, I guess, graffiti both gowns with all the words that women are called, and sort of like, and it describes it as taking back the power, which I am extremely happy that he was able to think that quick on his feet and that he was able to sort of salvage their gowns and find a way to make it work. I mean, yes, he's a good pageant coach, this proves it, and he's willing to do whatever it takes for his client, and I think it's admirable that he was able to do something like this. Now, thinking as an outsider, wouldn't you want to have a backup just in case something happened, like a zipper broke or something got spilled? I mean, especially with white, but that's just me. There's no way for us to be putting ourselves into these situations because yes, it's a television show, and yes, there needs to be some sort of drama for the action to move forward. And so, like, obviously they wouldn't have a backup because then that would ruin the drama of the television show. Now we go throughout the entire pageant. Patty's mother, of course, decides that she's going to teach her daughter a lesson by doing the pageant with her best friend. And, you know, this relationship between Patty and her mother is sort of like the central theme, that Patty has never been allowed to be the center of attention. And it sort of comes to a head at the question and answer period when Patty reveals that her fat was an armor and she never felt like she could excel at anything. And Alyssa Milano's character sort of showed her that if she just believed in herself, she could become the woman that she wants to be and become any woman that she would want to be. And I feel like this speech that she gives is what actually wins the pageant for them, because surprise, they win the pageant. Which is a little sad, and it's gratifying to see that she wins her first pageant and she then qualifies to go on to the bigger pageant, which is like Miss Jesus or something. I don't remember the name of it, but she gets to qualify for the pageant that she really wants to go to. The sad thing is that Alyssa Milano now has the respect of the other women in the community, and she says to Patty that we can no longer be friends. Like, I can't talk to you anymore because you're low rent, and I've always wanted to be with these women. Like, this is my dream, and this is what I've been working towards, and now that I am friends with them, I can't be friends with you. And it just shows, like, how ugly people can really be in this world, and it's really sad and a little depressing, I'm not gonna lie. And I just wish that this didn't happen. I mean, of course, like, I understand, like, what happened and why it happened. I guess it's hard to say. I mean, a woman who sort of took herself, I'm talking about Alyssa Milano's character, a woman who took herself out of a situation and found a way to up her station in life, I mean, for lack of a better phrasing, and then decides to completely forget that past, I guess wouldn't be a woman who would want to be friends with people who are currently in that situation. It's just sad. And of course, Patty, being the girl that she is and wanting to exact revenge on everybody and wanting to take Alyssa Milano's life, just like Alyssa Milano wants to take Christopher Gorham's wife's life, you know, there's some similarities going on here. There's some parallels. Patty decides to give her the necklace, and that's sort of where the episode ends. I mean, that is where the episode ends. I mean, if I'm thinking forward ahead into the next episode and having some predictions, I would assume that Alyssa Milano's character already knew about this relationship between Stella Rose and Bob and decided not to say anything because she wanted to up her station in life. That's just me thinking. I haven't watched the episode yet, but that is what I'm going to assume is going to happen in the next episode, just based on the fact of Alyssa Milano's face and the way that she looked at Patty as she walked away. Yeah, I feel like that's what's gonna happen. Oh, and also Arden's character got arrested for statutory rape. Surprise, surprise. That plan was set in motion by Bob and Christopher Gorham, and it worked out perfectly. All right. That's the end of our episode. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Notflix. If you enjoyed yourself here, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification so you can get notified every single time I upload a new video. If you want to keep up with me on a more regular basis, you can follow me across all social media platforms that you can call me Skiff. And if you want to be a friend, tell a friend. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.